Okay, also our first persuasive assignment is called the Fact Value Persuasive Outline. And you're going to write this outline just like you've been doing speeches 1, 2, and 3, but we're going to hold off on presenting this outline. That's because we're going to work this unit through 3 different assignments leading up to that big speech 4 outline and presentation. So think of this as like the first step to your speech 4 outline. So here you're going to pick either a proposition of fact or a proposition of value as discussed in our persuasive lecture. And we'll go over some reminders there for proposition of fact or value. And then we're going to talk about the 2 organizational patterns that you can choose from here, which is refutation or cause and effect, or the flip side of that, effect cause. And those 2 organizational patterns are discussed in your persuasive organization lecture. So looking back on those lectures, if you have questions here, and we'll start to develop our persuasive topics. So choosing something that you are interested in, curious about, maybe know a little bit about, and something that you can research for a good chunk of time here to end the semester. So we'll talk about this assignment first. Each student will prepare a persuasive outline focusing on either a proposition of fact or a proposition of value. Topics are limited to those approved by the instructor, so if you have questions about your topic, please let me know. A proposition of fact focuses on whether something is true or false, is or is not real. So I gave the example in our lecture, like Bigfoot is real. So you're stating something as a fact. It might seem like an opinion, but again, we're going back. How is it stated? Okay? And a proposition of value asserts that something is better than something else, right or wrong, good or bad. And we're going back to those things like unethical, ethical, immoral, moral, those things that have something on the opposite end of the continuum there. So for example, you may persuade your audience that global warming is or is not occurring, proposition of fact, or you may persuade your audience that capital punishment is or is not immoral, moral being the value word there. So I have talked about in our other lectures that is typically a tip-off for a proposition of fact, but that's if there's not another value word in there, in this case immoral. So our moral trumps this is, and we know it is a proposition of value. I would say, guys, that about 60–70% of propositions that students come up with are propositions of value. So keeping that in mind, there's all these value words that you can include in your proposition. So in preparing this outline, you should plan to prove the truth or falsity of your proposition, or motivate your audience to adopt the value judgment of your proposition. So this outline requires you to skillfully use the methods of persuasion discussed in your text and class lecture. Special emphasis should be given to evidence and reasoning. So guys, here we're finding that balance between research and that supplemental material, so that 30–70%. 30% is that new information, those statistics, those facts from those really good, credible sources, and then 70% is making that human connection and positioning that research into your audience members' lives. So that can be personal experience, it can be stories from society if you don't have that direct personal experience, it can be an explanation, an analogy, a description, hypothetical stories, all of those things. So you can even go back to your chapters on research and gathering supporting material if you're struggling there. So your target audience for this outline is your online group audience, and you will write the outline as if giving the presentation to them and use information you have previously gathered, formally or informally. So again, you can do that survey if you choose and really analyze your audience, or you can think back informally to what their topics have been in the past and kind of your feel for your group members. Okay, so you must adequately support your proposition using at least 4 credible sources. Sources will be cited in the text of your outline and in the reference page. So everything in your reference page should match up. I should be able to find them in the text of your outline as you use them. And guys, be sure that you are supporting each of your main points with at least 1 source. Okay? So citations are expected to be organized and presented based on APA format or a similar consistent citation format. So I've seen a lot of MLA, and that's okay as long as you're being very consistent and I can match that format, okay? So key areas to consider: all outlines must be typed, and you will use the topic you choose for this assignment for the remainder of the persuasive unit, including speech number 4. So we're going to work that you're just outlining here, and guys, this is really, really key. You're just outlining that there is a problem, there is a need for change in society. You are just telling us the problem, whether that's through refutation, where you're stating some commonly held beliefs and then refuting them with your evidence and your reasoning, or you're giving us the cause and the effects. So maybe a cause in main point 1 and then effect in main point 2 and effect in main point 3, or vice versa with the effect and the cause. So you're just outlining that there is a problem that needs to be addressed. Okay? And here we have the organizational patterns again, and outlines must follow the rules discussed in class lecture and in your text. Late outlines will not be accepted. So basically, guys, here you are presenting me with a problem. Then we're going to move into our memo assignment, where you briefly outline that problem again based on your fact value outline and your feedback there. And then you offer me a planned practical solution to that problem based on either a third-party agreement, where you're saying some larger entity probably has to solve this, but I'm still going to outline how, or immediate action, where your classmates can do something now, like volunteer or donate. Okay, those would be the action verbs maybe you might use. There's lots of others. Okay, so here you're just giving me the problem. Then in your memo, you're going to propose a solution to that problem. I'm going to say yay or nay, and then we're going to move into speech 4 on that same topic and reorganize to support that proposition of policy, what should or needs to be done. So we're saving that information for later. We're just focusing now on what is the problem. We are not advocating for a solution whatsoever in this fact value persuasive outline. Okay, so this is a 60-point assignment graded a little bit differently. And I suggest using this rubric kind of as a checklist. So each one is worth 2 points. So you can go through and say, did I focus on a persuasive topic? Yes or no? Does the outline have a general purpose to persuade? Yes or no? And then noting here, guys, that our specific purpose is formatted just a bit differently in persuasion. So we're going to say, at the end of my speech, my audience will agree that, and then you're going to state the specific purpose, okay? And then the proposition of fact or value, is it stated correctly? Is the topic challenging? Did you identify your organizational pattern? So just going through this whole rubric and checking off whether or not you have done these things, and I think you'll do pretty well, okay? All right, and here is an example outline. So noting up here, general purpose is changed to persuade, and then that little bit different specific purpose. At the end of my speech, the audience will agree that social media can have negative impacts on users. And then I have a proposition of fact here saying social media can lead to cyberbullying and negative self-esteem. So I said can lead to, that's stated as a fact, okay? So we go through, we do our introduction, remembering the 5 parts of the intro, that attention getter, that connection to the audience, that credibility statement, including this proposition of fact in here, and finally that preview statement. So we're covering all of our bases still here in this outline, just as if you would present it. Okay, then we're going through, we have some cited research. Notice this is more positioning to this fact, so we added some extra tidbits to make this stuff hit home. Then we have our review and preview and our signpost going through here, and we were using up here, oh, I need to state my, I'm catching myself, I need to say my organizational pattern at the top here, right? So obviously here we're using cause and effect. So pretend I wrote organizational pattern here, cause and effect. So I stated the cause, this is a student's outline actually. So I stated the cause here, they stated the cause here, and then we move here, we have the effect, and we have another effect leading into our conclusion that reviews our main point and ties back to our attention getter with a strong clinching statement. And then I have a reference list in APA format that you can fall back on as well. Okay guys, this is a lot to swallow at first, I know that. email me with any questions. Choose a really good topic that you can already kind of think in the back of your mind that you have an idea for a solution so that you're not stumped later. And we will work through this piece by piece. Theoretically, if you're getting all of your sources here and you're continuing to use them, so you're finding really good sources, you can throw those into your memo and just add in a few solution sources and then fill in any gaps that you need in Speech 4. So you should be building on one another, doing well on each assignment, and Speech 4 should not be as big of a challenge as you're thinking. Okay, as always, email me with questions and start writing that fact value outline.